life as well, but we are about to enter the senior year facing tremendous personal challenges. And, those things obviously can create inspiration as well. You guys would end up having an even better season your senior year, but there had to be challenges all across the board.
Oh, absolutely. With the loss of my dad, and then I got injured
Right.
that early on, midway through that season. I had turf toe in both of my big toes, which is kind of crazy because I got turf toe playing on natural grass because our grass was so bad. Our grass was so soft. It was sand based and it hadn't set in completely. And so it's like, I mean, turf toe is basically a hyperextension of your big toe. So while, I mean, nothing's torn, but that once you strain that ligament, then it's stretched and you have no push off and it's incredibly painful. So I wasn't as explosive running, but my backup was kind of a big mouth and kind of a hothead, and so I couldn't really sit because I couldn't turn my team over to that guy because no one had any real faith in him, and he was just, I mean, he's a nice guy, but he was just he said some things to the press, and he gave some the one game that I was gonna sit going into Iowa State and just so I could recover, get a full week of recovery, and then be back. And he they interviewed him, and they said Corby can't go. Do you think you can handle things? And he goes, of course I can handle things. Iowa State recruited me. They know what I can do. And I'm going, are you kidding me? I mean, just shut up. Just don't say anything. So I walked in. I read that in the paper, and I walked into the locker room, threw the paper at him, started screaming at him, and telling him what an idiot he was. And so I said, now I have to play. I said, because you're such a moron. You giving these people bulletin board material, and so they're going to be coming after you. And I can't put my team in that kind of spot. So I ended up playing up there, and that was the thing. Every week, everyone knew they had to account for me because no one knew how healthy I was. And so when we would run any kind of read options or anything like that, they would always make sure that I wasn't going to be the one that beat them, and that was their goal. And I mean, I remember I was still pretty injured when we played Kansas at home, and Terry Allen, their head coach, said we're not going to let Corby Jones beat us. So I mean, anytime we ran an option, it's a pitch, it's a pitch, it's a pitch, and Devin runs for 333 yards. That's school record. So I mean, it was an interesting experience. It was hard for me on two fronts, not having my dad there, and the fact that I couldn't perform the way I was used to performing. But we still found success because I had talent around me.
And also, as you said, they had to account for you. So, that's a pretty gutsy thing to do to play through that. But you end up having as I said, slightly better season, 8 wins in that particular year. Very gratifying year, I'm sure, in the end.
It was, and then the culmination was winning the bowl game at the end of the year, and we played that season for my dad, and to get our first bowl win. That I mean, for him not to be there in physical presence was difficult, but to know that he was there with us in spirit was pretty neat.
And you finish up that year. You're obviously a good student. And what was your thought process? You had played compromised your senior year, so I'm sure at some point everybody dreams, especially when they have as much success as you, as of playing at the next level. And it didn't quite work out as well as you should. But as you were exiting college, what was the game plan for you?
It was really interesting because it's funny that you say that because a lot of people do have that dream, but that wasn't ever my dream. It's really strange. I mean, the way I grew up and growing up in the business and seeing how good everyone is, and then knowing what percentage of these guys actually go on and play to the next level. I mean, my I had to deal with my mom when I was in ninth grade or eighth grade that if I got a scholarship, I'd get a new car of my choosing, like within reason. And so I was just trying to get a scholarship to get my car. I mean, it wasn't even. It really. So that was as far as I let myself think, because I knew the numbers, and I was always education was so stressed in my house. And so once after my junior season, and people were talking about Heisman, and people were talking about, are you going to play quarterback at the next level, or what would you be willing to play, and all the rest of the stuff. I'm going, what? I mean, it was kind of, it just blew my mind. I'm going, really? And so, but when my agent and I had a long conversation, and he said, you're going to get drafted in the mid rounds as a running back or as a safety, and I mean that's what's going to happen. And I said, yeah, I don't want to do it. And not knowing, not knowing at the time what a real job looked like, and not understanding that, okay, this is a job, this would be a job. And, compared to a lot of things, you'd be a lot better compensated, and you don't have to, I mean, and you have a little more time off, and your job is to be in shape and study and whatnot and work out. So, that wouldn't be a bad job in hindsight. But, I didn't really understand that. I mean, I was too smart for my own good. So the Cardinals called me with their fourth round pick, and wanted me to play they wanted me to play tailback. And so I said, no, I'm already signed. I'm signing in Montreal to play quarterback with the Alouettes, and that was into that. And then the other teams didn't know it yet either. So the Giants called me with their sixth round pick, and because I was still on the board technically, and I told them the same thing. But oddly enough, the Patriots called with their seventh round pick and said that they would let me play quarterback, and I'd already signed, but they ended up taking Michael Bishop with that pick.
Very interesting.
So that was kind of a little bit bittersweet, because I mean, I didn't think that granted, I would have been off the board already, but that would have been an interesting opportunity just to be able to learn. So I go to Montreal and spend a year and a half up there. They signed me, and there's not real money up there. So you're starting quarterback, and maybe two other players may be getting well compensated. And they were paying me better than they would pay a typical backup quarterback, because they signed me with expecting me to start in my second year, because we had a Hall of Fame quarterback that was getting ready to retire. So they signed me, and they also brought in a guy that had been in Hamilton, playing for Hamilton. That was, it was kind of a washout. I mean, people thought that, he was young. I mean, he wasn't much older than me. He's probably 3 or 4 years older than me, but he just wasn't succeeding in Hamilton. They couldn't block and whatnot. So they signed him as well. And by midway through our season, our starter was getting beat up a lot, getting hurt. And so they played this other guy, and by midway through the season, we're going to playoffs, and we have a quarterback controversy between our starter and this guy. And so I'm going, yeah, I don't think I'm going to beat this guy out. And ends up, his name's Anthony Calvillo, and he retired probably 3 years ago as the all-time leading passer in all of pro football. So that was the guy that they thought that they thought was a washout. So that's how that went down. So they ended up releasing me, and Hamilton wanted to sign me, actually. And I said, no, I'm not. I don't want to go to Hamilton, Ontario. I was kind of, I don't want to say I was burnt out with football, but I was ready to do something else, and it wasn't going to be in the CFL. I just didn't like it. Didn't like the game, didn't like three downs. You can't really take any risks, because, if you don't get something on first down, then you're behind the eight ball. And I just didn't like the game. And so I came home and was kind of contemplating what I was going to do. I was a National Football Foundation scholar athlete.
Right.
So I had $18,000 I had to spend on postgraduate work within 5 years of graduation. So I couldn't decide what I wanted to do yet. And my agent calls and says, Ozzie Newsome called and wants you to come to Baltimore and play safety. So I'm going, okay, well, I'm kind of bored and don't know what else I want to do. So, anybody who understands the level of talent and commitment it takes to play pro football at that level, boredom usually isn't going to be a recipe for success. So I go up there, and I'm playing defense behind Rod Woodson, and arguably the best defense of all time. And I played 3 preseason games, get injured or not to get injured. I was getting ready to get released, and Coach Billick calls me in his office and he says, "So how do you think you've done?" And I said, "Well, if I was competing against a bunch of former quarterbacks, I feel like I would have done pretty well." I said, "But these guys have been doing this thing for a long time." And he said, "Well, I'll give you two options." He goes, "You can either go home or you can go play running back because Coach Simon, the running back coach, who's wanted to draft you 2 years ago." And I said, "Okay, well, I've been here for 10 weeks, gone through all but one preseason game, so I may as well go ahead and stick around." So I moved to tailback, and I'm backing up Priest Holmes and Jamal, and just kind of learning. And then I get go we get through the last preseason game, and then I get practice rostered, and then Priest and Jamal both get injured within days of each other, and so they needed somebody that could come in and play. So they need to free up that spot. So they released me, and then asked me to come back the next year at tailback, and I said, "Nah, this is not for me. This
Right.
running back is not for me." But so then at that point, I decided I was going to take the LSAT because I didn't know what else to do, and I scored in the like 88th percentile of the LSAT and got a full ride. So at that point, I had my 15 or my 18 grand that I had to spend, and I was getting a full ride. So I was getting paid to go to law school. So I said, okay, well, why not just go to law school? And so that's how that started. Not that I ever dreamed of being a lawyer. I wasn't that guy.
But you did become a lawyer, and you've been very successful. Private practice, working for other firms as well, and that journey obviously has been successful with occasional bumps in the road. How about personally, post football? What's that been like for you?
Well, it's been good. I was I was the only one of my really close teammates and friends that was not married for the longest time. I had a good run. I had a good run, but I met my now wife in 2010 and at an anti-Valentine's Day party. And we sat there and chatted for a while and just became good friends initially. And then that kind of grew. And we started dating for a little while, and then I wasn't ready to settle down yet, and so then we broke up for about almost 2 years, and then but we stayed really close, and then she finally started like she'd gone on like dates, and then she started dating somebody for real, and I said, "Oh, no, 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 we're not gonna have that." So I put the kibosh on that and locked it down, and so we got married 3 years ago, and so that's and she's great. She's a nurse practitioner, super smart, sweetest person, just one of the most genuine people I've ever met, and one of the best people I've ever met.
And her name is?
Her name is Kelly, Kelli.
There you go, Kelly. And you're always somebody who's looking for different ventures, and you gave a shot to one recently, and I think that we've all been through tumultuous times in the last 2 or 3 years, and there's been a little bit of that for you too.
Absolutely. We had a failed cannabis experience that resulted in just a bad situation. No, anyone who's ever dealt with a government agency, there's endless. They have endless resources and pockets, and even when you have you even when they don't have a complaining person, they're going to find find a way to win, find a way to get what it is that they want. They get their pound of flesh, if you will.
Right.
And so I just went through a difficult time with that. I mean, it was just a basic disagreement between what a founder is and what an investor is, and I stood by my attorney stood by our point and had affidavits from our investors stating the same, but their definition didn't fit ours, and so they went on, and that deal we had to forced to settle based on from
Right.
reputational damage and resources. I mean, to fight a government agency is going to cost you
Right.
upwards of a couple $100,000, and so it was worth it to to get through it and move on. But we came out the other end.